In this episode, it's one last chance for modifications on my high school truck and namesake of the channel, the 95 Ford F-150. Welcome to the channel. I'm Grant Tommy. This is Straight Six Fan, your home for offbeat hot rodding, and well, we get to work on the 95 Ford F-150. If you caught the last episode, you know a lot more about my high school truck, and well, it's time to address a few things before we take it home to mom and dad's house. And I'm looking at this almost as if it's like you know, distributing the ashes for a loved one, right? Okay, that's a really bad description, I guess. A little far, so maybe it's more like redistributing the rust flakes on my original vehicle, my high school and college truck. It's too far gone for me to consider restoring this thing, and even if I did, it's not that cool of a truck to restore, but I do want to piece it out, part it out, and distribute some components to myself, to my parents' truck. So let's get into what I'm thinking here right now. This is Saturday, October 9th, and I make the about 120 mile voyage to about the halfway point between my house and my parents' house to do the old handoff on the truck, to get it to their yard. I don't have that much space, as you can see, in my driveway to keep this up here myself. So anyway, the first thing I'm going to take off are these Clevies for my D-rings, or whatever you want to call the mounting holes. You know, again, if you caught last episode, you know my dad and we fabricated this over a winter break in college, and what you see here is this is actually two chunks of 3/16 inch steel together and then welded together, and kind of dressed it up with the mini grinder, making a little chamfer on it. So I'm gonna cut these off and keep them for myself for my Toyota Tacoma bumper build I'm gonna do someday. And so that way I get a little slice of my truck. But next thing that's got to go before I make this trip tomorrow is, well, the MagnaFlow exhaust. It's already rusted through the casing here, and the tailpipes are pretty loose, so I don't want any like extra liability driving this thing, of the potential of something falling off like the exhaust. So I'm just gonna rip that out, and if all things go well, if I remember right, this is 2.5 inch exhaust up front. I do have 2.5 inch exhaust laying around that well, if you caught that What We Weld in Weekly episode where I busted the TIG welder out, and I'll leave an info card up over wherever it goes. Maybe it's actually up here, but you can see that we're gonna use that, and I'll run to the parts store and get an exhaust clamp if I really need to, and so it'll be a straight pipe tomorrow. But then the last thing I want to take care of before we make this trip is a new set of spark plugs. I picked up a new set of spark plugs this week because it just ran so rough. And if you recall in last episode, I said I'm gonna eventually pull the motor for myself, so it's good insurance for myself. But it just ran so rough, and I pulled one plug over the course of the week. If you follow me on Instagram, and I guess this is a good reminder that if you don't follow me on Instagram, why don't you go ahead and do that now, at Straight Six Fan. But I yanked a plug, and it was an Excel brand plug. In college, I bought an Excel brand tune-up kit, so a cap, rotor, plug wires, and plugs. And so that's right, at least in it, I remember doing it in the parking lot of not my very last apartment I lived in college, so it could have been as far back as 2006 since the last time this motor had fresh plugs. So anyway, I'm going to do that, and hopefully it runs a little smoother, idles a little smoother. So let's get to it. Well, looks like we're gonna punt on the exhaust modification because, well, the 2.5 inch pipe that I have compared to the 2.5 inch pipe that's on, it's like literally the same size, so this doesn't want to sleeve over the top of it, even though it's the flared end. So, not a big deal. I was just gonna cut like a cool turn down out of this, but you know, it's just gonna be a longer straight pipe. So anyway, we'll move on from this and we'll take a look up front. Now for my shackle mounts, I considered busting out my plasma cutter, but the power source for it's on the other side of the garage. I'd have to move this truck to get closer, and then even then, I don't know how close I had to get the truck to it. I don't know how long my leads would have really stretched. And this is about 3/4 inch material to get through, and it's good for up to 1/2 inch material. So just with all that combined, I'm just going to use the old death wheel and buzz these things off. So that's what we're doing. So I found it was going to be in my way if I left the D-ring in place, so I had to remove that to make the cut the rest of the way. And well, since the previous owner never removed the D-rings ever in 13 years, of course they're kind of seized on, so a little bit of heat and the impact wrench, we got it off, so let's just get back to cutting. Well, thank goodness for my clutch impact wrench set, because I previously did not own something big enough. It wound up being 1 1/8 inch. That fit well enough on the on these guys, on the D-rings, so I was able to extract those. So anyway, cut this last one. So there we are, both of them are off, and you know what, I just wanted to take a second talking about this bumper, because so much about this truck obviously represents the channel, it's my namesake, but this bumper too represents probably at least 2 out of the 3 times my dad tried teaching me how to weld. Basically, I'm self-taught. I mean, there were things I remember from those 2 or 3 times he tried teaching me how to weld that I implemented when I started arc welding on my own, but you know, between the name of my channel, Offbeat Hot Rodding, and what we weld in weekly, you know, this bumper, that's why it was so important for me to yank these off. Yeah, it was a break over like a winter break over college that we tried. Dad tried teaching me to weld on this bumper, but I just realized with such a small window of time, that Saturday or whatever it was, to get it done, that I was just like, you know what, I would just hand it over to the master at that point, let him do it, so it would turn out right. Even though I wanted to learn how to weld at the time, it just wasn't the right setting. So anyway, this is super important to me. We don't have what we weld in weekly without these guys. All right, so I already think I know that this will run smoother for 2 reasons. One, I mean, like I said, it's a 15-year-old spark plug, probably. But the other thing is that the random one I pulled off over the course of the week, I looked at, and it had a tip like this, and I was worried that these new plugs weren't going to work. Well, it's because on these Excel plugs, it's got a little threaded kind of copper adapter here at the top. So one of the cylinders was missing this. And there's one plug that I was backing it out about halfway and it got hung up. So I was worried about it cross-threading. So I'm just, you know, it's going to be 5 out of 6 new plugs. But this is the one I was telling you about. And looking down the wire itself, I can see that top, that plug that goes on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this in, tighten it up and see if I can yank it out, and then we'll put the new plug in. Finally got it out, but not without, well, damaging the wire. Okay, the more and more I mess with it, I just made the call to go get new plug wires. And as far as that goes, I'm gonna now have two things. These vacuum lines on the throttle body are super cracked, so I'm gonna replace those, because I think I've got vacuum line laying around from the Fairmont. And then I may pop the cap off and just clean up cap and rotor just in case. But yeah, this should run a lot better once we're done. Crazy that the 40-year-old Ford Fairmont, well, you know, what is it now, 43-year-old Ford Fairmont's a better donor than the 95 Ford F-150, but yeah, thank goodness I kept the extra vacuum line around. Okay, new plug wires are on, new plugs are in. Got the straight pipe exhaust, so let's give it a start up, see how it sounds, see how it runs. Well, like I said, we'll be taking it on the trip tomorrow. That'll be, I guess we'll call it a part 2 to this little mini-series. So you'll have to tune in for the next episode after this to see how that trip went, see if I ran into any problems. But like, comment, share, subscribe. I don't care which one you do, as long as you do one. It really helps the channel out. Just wanted to say thanks to all my 6 fans out there. Thanks for watching.